High Counselor Vexthara pressed her six-fingered hands against the reinforced viewport of her command station, watching the hegemony fleet advance through the Kepler system like a swarm of metallic death. 3,000 ships, each one bristling with weapons that could crack a moon in half. Behind them, the shattered remains of the Galactic Defense Force drifted in expanding clouds of debris. The distress beacon had been broadcasting on all frequencies for 18 standard hours. The message was simple, desperate, and increasingly futile. The last free worlds of the Outer Rim were under siege, their populations numbering in the billions. Any Allied forces capable of response were requested to render immediate assistance. No one had answered. "Status report," Vexthara commanded, though she already knew what her communications officer would tell her. No response from the Zentorian High Command. The Krell Collective has gone dark. The Andromedans cite strategic repositioning as their reason for non-engagement. Lieutenant Kesserin's voice cracked slightly. "We're on our own, High Counselor." Vexthara nodded grimly. She had expected as much. The hegemony's advance had been swift and brutal, crushing every major military installation in their path. Those species that hadn't been conquered outright had retreated to their core worlds, abandoning the Outer Rim to its fate. The political calculus was simple: better to sacrifice the frontier colonies than risk the hegemony turning their attention to the established galactic powers. It was, Vexthara reflected, a perfectly logical decision. It was also morally bankrupt. "High Counselor," her sensor technician called out, voice tight with confusion. "I'm detecting spatial distortions at the edge of the system. Something's coming out of hyperspace." "Hegemony reinforcements?" Vexthara asked, though the question felt redundant. Who else would be crazy enough to enter a star system currently being consumed by the galaxy's most ruthless military force? "Negative. The drive signatures are unfamiliar. Configuration suggests multiple vessels, but the energy readings are unlike anything in our database." The first ship materialized like a ghost emerging from fog. It was smaller than Vexthara had expected, roughly half the length of a hegemony dreadnought, but its design spoke of aggressive pragmatism. Angular surfaces deflected sensor sweeps, while weapon ports dotted its hull like the eyes of a predator. Most remarkably, it bore markings that Vexthara recognized from the Galactic Council archives, the simple blue and white symbol of the Terran Federation. "By the ancient lights," Lieutenant Kesserin whispered, "it's the humans." More ships followed, then more. Within minutes, the space around the hyperspace emergence point swarmed with human vessels of every class and configuration. Massive carriers disgorged clouds of fighters. Sleek destroyers arranged themselves in defensive formations. And at the center of it all, a single battleship that somehow managed to look both elegant and absolutely lethal. Vexthara's communications array crackled to life. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Federation Navy, aboard the TFS Indomitable. We received your distress call and are here to render assistance. Please transmit target priorities and civilian evacuation coordinates." The High Counselor stared at the tactical display in stunned silence. The human fleet numbered barely 300 ships, a tenth the size of the hegemony Armada. By every military doctrine in the galaxy, they were about to commit spectacular suicide. "Admiral Chen," Vexthara responded, her voice carefully controlled, "while we appreciate your gesture, you should be aware that you are facing a hegemony battle fleet of overwhelming numerical superiority. We would not think less of you if you chose to withdraw and preserve your forces for a more strategic engagement." There was a pause before Admiral Chen replied, and when she did, there was something in her voice that made Vexthara's combat instincts suddenly take notice. "High Counselor, humanity has a saying: the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good beings to do nothing. We didn't travel 800 light years to preserve our forces. We came here to use them." What followed redefined Vexthara's understanding of space combat. The human fleet didn't charge headlong into the hegemony formation as she had expected. Instead, they dispersed like a school of fish encountering a predator, each ship group taking a different vector approach. Their formations seemed chaotic, almost random, until the first salvo of hegemony plasma cannons lit up the void. Not a single shot found its target.
"Impossible," breathed her tactical officer. "The humans are predicting firing solutions and moving to avoid them before the hegemony weapons even charge." The human counterattack came from 17 different angles simultaneously. Missiles that seemed to think for themselves wove through hegemony point defenses. Energy weapons struck with surgical precision, targeting weapon systems and engine compartments rather than attempting to destroy entire ships. Within the first 5 minutes of engagement, the hegemony had lost nearly 100 vessels to disabling hits, while the human fleet remained completely intact. "How are they doing this?" Vexthara demanded. Her sensor technician looked up from his displays, face pale with awe. "They're networking their entire fleet, High Counselor. Every ship is sharing targeting data, movement predictions, even emotional stress indicators of enemy commanders. It's not 300 ships fighting, it's one massively distributed intelligence with 300 bodies." The battle continued for 2 hours. When it ended, the hegemony fleet was in full retreat, leaving behind nearly half their number as either debris or captured vessels. The human fleet had suffered exactly 7 casualties. Admiral Chen's face appeared on Vexthara's main screen, her expression calm but tired. "High Counselor, we're ready to begin evacuation operations. Our medical ships can accommodate roughly 2 million refugees per trip, and our logistics vessels are prepared to establish supply lines for any populations that choose to remain." "Admiral," Vexthara said slowly, "may I ask why humanity responded when no other major power would?" Chen considered the question. "Because someone sent a distress call, and we heard it. On Earth, we have a tradition of helping people who need help, regardless of whether it's strategically advantageous. We call it doing the right thing." She paused, then added with a slight smile. "Besides, someone had to show the hegemony that not every species in this galaxy is willing to roll over and let them do whatever they want. Might as well be us." As the human fleet began coordinating with the surviving Rim Defense Forces, Vexthara found herself updating her species' intelligence files on humanity. Next to their military assessment, she added a single crucial note: "Will respond to distress calls regardless of tactical disadvantage." Their concept of strategic thinking appears to include moral considerations as primary factors. It was, she realized, either humanity's greatest weakness or their most terrifying strength. Given what she had just witnessed, she was inclined toward the latter. After all, any species crazy enough to travel 800 light-years to help strangers was probably crazy enough to do just about anything else they set their minds to. The galaxy, Vexthara reflected, had just become a much more interesting place.